written your story, obviously to become a writer, the next step is to get it published. And that's basically 4 stages. The first stage, market research. The second stage, submission. Third stage, wait. The fourth stage, rinse and repeat. Now, market research is a lot easier today than it was 20 years ago because the government and universities decided they would finally share the internet with the rest of us mere mortals. So one of your go-to places for market research is, of course, Google. Google is your friend. But there's an older and quite often equally effective market research tool. It is a book. Yes, a real book, printed on paper. It is called The Writer's Market. You will find copies of it in the London Library system. They publish a new version every year. Make sure the title of the book includes the same year that you are currently living in, because if you read the book that was published a year before, half of those markets will be gone. The things you're looking for in your market research are what kind of market is it? Generally speaking, what are they buying? And how do they want it sent to them? So that takes us into the second stage, submission. And as my hero over here said, now I want you to picture 3 words in your mind. All caps, bold-faced, 10 feet high. Read the guidelines. And as a corollary to that, you can picture these letters, all caps, bold-faced, but only 6 feet high. Obey the guidelines. Now, when I was an editor, and when I become an editor again next year, I will have guidelines on my website. In those guidelines, I will tell you, I will only take stories up to 7,000 words. I want hard science fiction. Don't give me that romantic science fiction. Don't give me that Western science fiction crossover stuff. I just want hard science fiction, or soft science fiction, or space opera, whatever. I will pay you X number of pennies for every word you write. I want it written on napkins you stole from your local restaurant with a black Bic ballpoint pen. You will fold each napkin into quarters, stuff them into a manila envelope, 10 by 12, mail it to Australia and have someone in Australia mail it over to me. Now, obviously that's a ridiculous concept, but there will be specific instructions on how to submit your story. And you must follow those instructions. As Stephen said, first and foremost, the guidelines are a test. And you have to pass that test. And here's why. When I was running Spaceways Weekly, I published 52 stories per year, 1 for each week. My submissions were on average 40 to 60 stories per week. And I had a lot of things to do as an editor, and reading stories was actually on the bottom of my list. So the first thing I did with that pile of submissions was follow the guidelines? Nope, reject. Follow the guidelines? Nope, reject. Follow the guidelines? Oh yeah, okay, well, I'll read that one. Guidelines? Nope. Guidelines? Nope. So I would quickly pare my slush pile, and by the way, we editors really do call it a slush pile. I would pare it down from 60 submissions came in that week to now I've only got 6 I actually have to read. Now, stage 3, the waiting. If an editor is a good one, the guidelines will give you some idea of what the response rate is. If not, go on to Google and Google Publication response times. Back in the 90s, I knew of 2 websites that tracked how fast writers were hearing back from editors after they submitted. And it was the writers who were telling the websites, oh yeah, it took that guy like 8 months to answer me. So if the guidelines say you'll hear back within 3 months, don't give it a week and then shoot the editor a letter saying, so what did you think of my story? Reject. But if the editor doesn't give you an indication of the response time, generally give them between 6 weeks to 3 months to reply to you. You may get, in this day and age, you'll likely get an automated response saying, hey, we received your submission, thank you very much, I'll be in touch. But you got to give the person time to read your story because, remember, I was cutting my pile down to 5 stories per week. By the time your story got to me and it met all the guidelines and I decided to read it, it went on to the bottom of the pile. And there may have been 30 stories piled on top of yours. I'm sorry, I read faster than most human beings, but it's still going to take me a month or 2 to get through 30 stories and get to yours. And if you nag the editor too soon, you're going to get rejected. But if you haven't heard something in 3 months, at the most, a polite inquiry is certainly acceptable. If you haven't heard by that time, there is a slight possibility they never got it. Now, the waiting is the hardest part of the whole publication process. Step 4, stage 4. Whether the response is, I accept your story and will publish it, or I'm sorry, I don't want your story, is irrelevant. Step 4, rinse and repeat. You shouldn't be sitting around with only 1 story out for submission. Identify several markets you would like to get published in. Make sure every one of them has a story. And while you're waiting to hear back from those, you should be working on the next story and getting it to match somebody's guidelines and get it out to them. Don't ever sit around idle. You'll just chew your fingernails down to the quick for no good reason because you're stressing out over, oh my God, does he like the story? Now, what I would like to cover at this point are the types of markets that are available to writers. I'm going to start at the bottom of the barrel, literally, and work my way up to the great and glorious top. Now, at the very bottom of the barrel is this thing called vanity press. Their advertisements pitch it to you as, you want to be a published writer? Send us your book, you'll be a published writer. It's a bit misleading. A vanity press actually is not a publishing company. It is a printing company. They will print your book, they will bind your book, they will fill boxes with your books, they will ship them to you, and then it's up to you to market and sell the book. Now, if you're absolutely going to die by the end of the week if you don't see your name on the cover of a book in print, by all means, go to the vanity press because that's what it's all about. It's about stroking your vanity. You can go to your friend's family and go, look, I have my name on a book. Buy a copy, please. Because now I'm $10,000 in debt. Now, one step up from that, we have fanzines, which is short for fan-published magazine. Now, a lot of writers will discount them because, well, first of all, they're being published by fans, and most of the stuff they publish are fans writing stories about their favorite fiction, and nobody gets paid for anything. However, if you poke around on the internet a little bit, you will discover that there are currently 2 multi-million-dollar franchises that encompass books, movies, and wagon loads of merchandise, and both of them started out as fan fiction being published by fanzines. It can happen. But it's kind of like winning the Lotto 649. Your odds are 1 in approximately 1.8 billion. It's like kids see Justin Bieber. Oh, he posted a video on YouTube singing a song and now he's a multi-millionaire. Yes, that can happen. Really long odds though. But don't discount fanzines. If you need to know if you're doing a good job, take something that you don't really plan to sell, send it to the fanzines, and try to hit only the ones that give their readers a way to respond to your writing. There's nothing like putting a story out in front of 200 or 300 readers and they all hit the like button. All right. So I'm writing stuff people like. It's crushing when they all hit the don't like button. Now, one step up from the fanzine is the semi-pro magazine. What's a semi-pro magazine? Well, it's a magazine where you actually do get paid for your story, but they're just not paying professional rates. In the science fiction industry, who decides what's a pro rate? Well, that's an organization known as SFWA, Science Fiction Writers of America. And if you want to be a rich and famous science fiction writer, one of your goals should be to become a member of the SFWA, because that's the Writers Guild that is out there campaigning your cause to be paid better, to be treated fairly, and all that good stuff. They also have an annual awards program called a nebula. And if you win a nebula, that means you are the top of your field. It's like an actor getting an Oscar, only better, because it actually means something. So currently, the SFWA has said pro rates are 6 to 8 cents per word for a short story. So if you're publishing semi-pro, that means you'll get somewhere between 1 to 5 cents per word. You want to target the semi-pro market as much as you can for one simple reason. I'm only aware of 3 science fiction magazines on this planet that rank as pro publications. One of them's Analog, and they've been around since the 1920s, and they created every famous science fiction writer you've ever heard of. Yes, they will publish brand new writers who have very little track history, but you've really got to have a bloody good story to get their attention. A lot of writers who end up in Analog came up from the semi-pro market, because there are hundreds of semi-pro magazines. And just because the editors are publishing semi-pro, it doesn't mean they are not professional. My Spaceways Weekly was a semi-pro magazine. I would lurk on writers' forums to see what writers were talking about and what they were saying about editors, and it blew my socks off one day when I landed on one of the more popular forums, and somebody actually said, if you want to know what it's like to work with a great editor, send a story to Spaceways Weekly. That Rigel guy just rocks. He knows how to treat writers. So no, we're not a bunch of amateur editors who don't know what we're doing. And the semi-pro market is your training ground to get into the pro market. Because when you do finally go to Analog, it's far better to say, okay, I've had these 20 stories published, and these are the publications that publish them for me. Hello? It's called a resume. Every employer wants to see a resume. And for a writer, it's a list of where you've been published. Analog doesn't care if they're semi-pro magazines. If you can show them a list of, I've had 20 publications, it tells them, okay, this person's writing is good enough that editors are buying it, readers are reading it, so we'll pay attention. If you go to them and your publication list is 0, unless you've just written something that makes Robert A. Heinlein look like a blithering idiot, they're not going to be interested. Again, getting published, your first story published in Analog is like winning the lottery. It happens, but don't hold your breath. And of course, one step up from the semi-pro market is the pro magazine market. It functions pretty much exactly the same as the semi-pro market, but there's a heck of a lot less of them, and they pay you more money for your story. And then that great and glorious top I mentioned is, of course, the book publishers. If you really want to be able to pay your mortgage, feed your kids, get rid of all your debt, you got to be publishing books. you would have to publish hundreds of short stories to match the income you could get from one book that is the 1 in 3 that makes money. Now, and again, a lot of those book writers, they came up the ladder. They started in semi-pro, they got into the pro magazines. That's when they caught the attention of the book publishers. And sometimes, if you've worked hard enough, you'll actually get an email one day saying, hey, I'm the editor over at Tor Books, and I've been seeing your stuff in the magazines. You got any novels in the works? You want to send me something I can look at? It happens. Don't hold your breath on it, but it happens. But if you've got that publication track record in the magazines, when you approach the book authors, again, you've got a resume. And the resume says, hey, people are buying this person's writing, and hey, people are reading this person's writing, and therefore you are more marketable. All right? Now, I can give you 2 examples from my own personal experience of how this system works. One of the goals I always said I had as an editor is I wanted to be the guy who got somebody started and then one day they are the world famous science fiction writer. There was a woman named Beth Brnovich. I bought her first story, semi-pro. I paid her 1 cent per word for that story back in the late 90s. She currently has 12 fantasy novels in publication, and she is doing quite well. And I published her first story. There was this other writer that I think I bought, I'm going to say 5 of his stories. None of them were the first one. He had already published some stories before he found me. But I bought 4 or 5 of his stories. And this was, again, his early works, penny a word, semi-pro. This year, at a convention in Chicago, Dr. Lawrence Schoen was up for Nebula for the Best Novel 2015. He didn't win, but he was nominated. So there are 2 prime examples of how you start out in the semi-pro with your short fiction, and you work your way up to being nominated for that glorious Nebula Award. That's how the system works, and it does work. And it requires you to, as Stephen said, get on with it. Don't sit around saying, I want to write. Sit down at the computer and write. Even if you only write 2 pages of gibberish just so you're getting words out of your head onto the paper, since we don't actually type on paper anymore. Even if you're just writing greeting card stuff. Somebody once made the mistake of, in a public forum, calling Harlan Ellison a science fiction writer. And he tore a strip off them as only Harlan Ellison can. He explained to them, I am not pardon the language, I am not a goddamn science fiction writer. I am a writer, period. He has been paid for writing Hallmark greeting cards, television scripts, movie scripts, advertising blurbs, short stories, books. In just about every genre. He's even written romance novels because he needed to put bread on the table. You don't look for them. They weren't published under the name Harlan Ellison. And if you do discover which ones he wrote, he will probably kill you. But that's the thing. The point of that story is, if you want to be a writer, write. And if you're having trouble spitting out a science fiction story this week, just write anything. Write a romance, a mystery, write a greeting cards, write a dozen greeting cards. Just keep that mechanism in your brain working. And then once you exercise it, you'll get that science fiction story going again. And then once you've got that science fiction story, read the guidelines. You must pass that test. As an editor, I will tell you, yes, the guidelines are a test. You must pass that. But once I've gotten to know you, the guidelines become flexible. I had a writer I had published, and he sent me a story one day. He said, Rigel, I know you only publish up to 7,000 words, which is generally considered a short story. Above that, you're getting into novelette, novella. He sent me a 15,000-word story, which is basically a novella. He said, I know you won't publish it, but read it and let me know what you think. I sent him a contract. I published a 15,000-word story. And I told my writers, hey, guess what, gang? This week you're getting double your money. Because it was a great story. Now, to me personally, a great story means characters I get emotionally invested in, and a good solid plot that starts here, ends here, and gives me a logical story. It really didn't matter too much if you were writing about something on a planet, on a spaceship, out in the galaxy at large, a war, a peace mission. The characters had to be good characters that I could care about. And that's what he gave me in 15,000 words. And I went, oh, crap. I can't afford this, but I can't afford to not publish it. So I did. And once you do develop that kind of a relationship with an editor, they will sometimes contact you and say, hey, you know what? I kind of got this idea for a story. And here's another secret. Most of us editors, we can't write to save our lives. But we do know good stories when we see them. And I did that occasionally. Hey, John, I kind of had this idea. Show me what you can do with it. And John would send me a story. I didn't always buy it, but sometimes I did. And something Stephen mentioned, you're going to get critique from the editor. One of the things people liked about me is, if I had time, I didn't just send you a letter and say, I'm sorry, I don't want this. If I had time, I would say, you know what? You've got a good story, but it's a bit weak here, here, and here. If you get a letter, a rejection letter that says, I didn't like this, this, and this, for crying out loud, pat yourself on the back that the editor actually took the time to do that. Secondly, pay attention to what he said, fix the story, fix the 2 or 3 things they don't like, send it back with a cover letter saying, I took your recommendations and reworked the story, would you please look at it again? And you just might sell it to them. I mean, first of all, they're going to be tickled pink that a writer actually took their advice. Like, that's a little bit rare, especially if you don't already have a working relationship. And if the editor is buying the story, it becomes our job to go through it and say, okay, this word's spelled wrong, the grammar's not correct here, oh, you forgot to put the word to in this sentence. But we may, at that point, also send it back to you and say, you know what? The paragraph in this section, it's a little weak. Could you pump it up a little? It's supposed to be an action scene, but I'm reading Shopping for Groceries on Saturday morning. And again, maybe you're a baby, but it's his magazine or her magazine. Take the advice, rework it, and send it back. And quite often, I think you'll be surprised to discover that you end up with a better story. Because you folks, you know how to write the stories. What the editor knows is what their readers like to read. And here's a big secret I'm going to reveal to you about magazine publication. There's this very peculiar relationship where editors trust subscribers to read their stories they're publishing. Readers trust the editor to send them stories that they enjoy reading. And how the heck can an editor know what 10,000 people like to read? Simple. The people who subscribe to my magazine like the same stories I do. So if I don't like your story, those 10,000 subscribers of mine, they're not going to like it either. And that's why I reject it. It is that simple. If the editor doesn't like it, neither will his or her readers. Because that's their relationship. The readers say, I'm going to give you my money. Now you give me the stories I like. And they picked that magazine because they've read a few issues and discovered, you know what? This editor likes the same stuff I do. I'm going to subscribe. So always work to produce a story that editor likes. It may not work for the other magazine, but if it works for that one, perfect. You've got a deal. We're coming up hard against our deadline here, but are there any questions that we can take care of quickly?
I would recommend writing down the ideas. It all goes to how you work. There's nothing wrong with planning, there's nothing wrong with pantsing, and all the points on that continuum you can hit. Nothing wrong with it if it works for you. What I do recommend is when you have an idea file, yes, you write it down. Because when you're going through, you might go, that would fit here. That would be the perfect conflict to throw out my characters here. So you pull that out of the idea file, fine. It's a good idea. And also, some days you just don't have an original thought in your head, and you can go to that as a wellspring so you don't stall completely.
This is for the editor. US English or UK?
If you're sending it to a Canadian or British publisher, UK English. If you're sending it to an American, US English. But write it in whatever English you're using. The editor will correct it to their version. And I had an American writer once contact me after the story was published, and he said, "You spelled color wrong." And I said, "No, I spelled it right. You were the one who spelled it wrong when you sent it to me. But you know what, guy? It's only one letter. Don't get worked up about it." Alrighty, well in that case, I expect to see all of your names being published somewhere in the next year. That's your goal. Get something published in the next year. Now, like I said, I am going to work at getting my publishing company up and running again in 2016. If you want to be kept in the news about it, grab one of these cards and get in touch with me. Be advised that if you send me your name and email address, that counts as giving me consent to send information to you under the Canadian anti-spam legislation. Oh, one other thing, learn the Copyright Act. It's there to protect you, and it's there to prevent you from infringing other people's rights. The Copyright Act is one of your best friends. Thank you for coming. Good luck with your efforts.